The day Karen's son walked up to me and demanded I hand over my Harley, like it was some kind of community property. I thought it was a joke, but when he actually called the cops on me for refusing, I realized this wasn't just entitlement. This was about to turn into one of the biggest mistakes of his life. What he didn't know was that I wasn't standing there alone. And the person backing me up wasn't just any lawyer. By the time this ended, their whole family understood exactly how far they had crossed the line. Before we get into this, if you enjoy real-life HOA drama and stories where people take things way too far and regret it, go ahead and hit like and subscribe to Karen's Stories Daily. It really helps the channel grow. And trust me, this one gets crazy fast. So this started on a quiet Saturday afternoon. I was out front cleaning my Harley. It's not just a bike to me. I've had it for years. Put time into it, money into it, rides, memories. It's personal. The neighborhood I lived in had an HOA, but I mostly kept to myself. Paid my dues, followed the basic rules, didn't get involved in the politics. And like most neighborhoods like this, there was a Karen. Always watching, always complaining, always acting like she had more authority than she actually did. Her son, though, he was a different kind of problem. Mid-20s, entitled, loud, and always trying to show off like he owned the place. I'd seen him before, but we never really talked. Until that day, I was wiping down the tank when I heard footsteps coming up the driveway. I looked up and saw him standing there, just staring at the bike. Not admiring it, inspecting it. He said, "That yours?" I nodded. "Yeah." He walked closer without asking, ran his hand along the handlebar. I immediately said, "Hey, don't touch it." He pulled his hand back slowly, like I had just insulted him. Then he said something I didn't expect. "My mom says that kind of thing isn't allowed here." I paused. "What kind of thing?" He pointed at the bike. "That." I almost laughed. "It's a motorcycle," I said. "It's parked in my driveway." He shook his head. "It's not approved. And honestly, it's kind of loud and aggressive for the neighborhood." Now I knew exactly where this was going. I said, "It's registered, legal, and I'm within HOA guidelines." He didn't like that answer. Instead, he said something that took it to a whole different level. "Well, I want it." I just looked at him. "What?" He said it again, slower this time. "I want the bike. I've been looking for one like this. You should just give it to me and get something more appropriate." For a second, I honestly thought he was joking. But he wasn't smiling. I said, "That's not happening." He crossed his arms. "My mom runs this HOA." I said, "That doesn't give you ownership over my property." That's when his tone changed. "You're going to have problems if you don't cooperate." Now I was starting to get annoyed. I said, "You need to leave." Instead of leaving, he pulled out his phone. And right there, standing in my driveway, he called the police. I couldn't believe it. He told them I was refusing to comply with HOA rules and that there was a dispute over property. I just stood there, watching this unfold. Because now I knew this was going to go further than it should. About 10 minutes later, a patrol car pulled up. Two officers stepped out. They walked over, calm but cautious. One of them asked, "What seems to be the issue?" Karen's son immediately jumped in. "He's refusing to give up the motorcycle. It violates HOA rules, and he's being aggressive." I almost laughed at that. The officer turned to me. "Sir," I said, "it's my bike. It's parked on my property. There's no violation." The officers exchanged a look, because even they could tell something didn't add up. One of them asked, "Is there any documentation showing this is an HOA violation?" Karen's son hesitated. "Well, not exactly," but before he could finish, another car pulled up. And that's when everything changed. A black sedan. Clean, official looking. The door opened, and a man stepped out, calm, collected. And immediately, the officers straightened up a bit, because they recognized him. He walked over, looked at me, and nodded. Then he turned to the officers and said, "What's going on here?" One of them explained quickly, "Dispute over property. HOA complaint. Motorcycle." The man listened carefully. Then he looked at Karen's son and said, "You called the police because someone wouldn't give you their personal property." Karen's son suddenly looked a lot less confident. "Well, it's against HOA rules." The man cut him off. "Show me where it says that." Silence. Then the man turned slightly toward the officers. "This is a misuse of police resources." That's when Karen herself showed up. She must have heard about the situation. She walked over quickly, already defensive. "What's going on here?" Her son pointed at me. "He's refusing to comply." Karen looked at the man in the suit and said, "And who are you?" He didn't raise his voice, didn't change his tone. He just said, "State attorney," and everything went quiet. You could feel the shift instantly. Karen's expression changed. Her confidence dropped just enough to notice, because now, this wasn't just some neighborhood argument. This was official. He continued. There is no legal basis for this complaint. No violation. No authority to demand transfer of property. Karen tried to recover. We're just trying to maintain community standards, he said, by attempting to take someone's property. No answer. The officers stepped back slightly, clearly ready to wrap things up. One of them said, there's nothing here that requires police action. Karen's son tried one last time, but the officer cut him off. Sir, this call was unnecessary. And just like that, it was over. Or at least, it should have been. But the consequences didn't stop there, because calling the police for something like that, it gets documented. And when it involves misuse, it can lead to bigger issues. Over the next few days, things spread through the neighborhood. People heard what happened, and the story didn't sound good for Karen or her son. Board members started asking questions. Residents started paying attention. And suddenly, Karen wasn't the untouchable authority she thought she was. There was a meeting, and during that meeting, the situation was brought up. Not exaggerated. Not emotional. Just facts. What was said? What was done? What lines were crossed? Karen tried to explain, said it was a misunderstanding, but it didn't land because too many people had seen it for what it was. Control. Overreach. Entitlement. And her son? He didn't show up. After that, things changed. The HOA became quieter, more careful. Less aggressive. And as for me, I kept my bike. Still ride it. Still take care of it. But now, every time I pull into that driveway, I remember that moment, because it showed something simple. Some people think authority means ownership. Until they run into someone who knows the law. If you've ever dealt with someone like this or seen a situation go too far, let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this story, share it with someone who loves real-life drama. And don't forget to subscribe to Karen's Stories Daily for more stories, where people learn the hard way that you can't just take what isn't yours and expect nothing to happen.